And the last part is the face on Mars part. And he was saying that we're going to eat the face on Mars. And I was thinking maybe I should change my lyrics, because I have a different lyric for that. But, what, the mic drop? Oh, okay. It's a little.
Is this my mic or yours?
Somebody just taped a little microphone up to my thingy, and I'm not sure where it's supposed to go.
Take care, Ted. This is the mic I had on. You moved it over. Yeah. Put it right here.
It's an awfully small piece of duct tape, but let's hope it holds. Okay. Ooh.
Treasures float on a Martian moon. They seek to hide what they found. We seek to find what they've lost. The sky is aglow. The brighter it burns, the deeper we go. Seeking to know what we found, seeking to know what we've lost. Oh, Red Rover. Their minds are bent to hide this ruin. They drink their lies, spin their news, but we will kiss the face on Mars. The sky will turn and time will spend. When planets align and Earth descends, who will kiss the face on Mars? Disinformation makes me nervous, so I followed your eyes and took me far, far away. With one true friend is coming to life. This ancient world, an
I told you she was cool. Very cool. All right. Oh, by the way, yes. This is Victoria. That's with a Y and a K, V-Y-K. Again, cool. Victoria Pratt Keating. She has albums out there. Go buy them, because I'm telling you, you ain't gonna find that music anywhere else. Are we okay? And I don't want to leave John Greenwald out. Richard was getting attention, 4,000 flash bulbs, and poor John's sitting over there going, gee, what have I got to do to get a photograph here? Look, John is in his mid-20s, he's not 14, and when he was in his late teens, or mid-teens, he launched into this field and created a wonderful thing called the Black Vault, which, as most of you know, is a store in the Mall of America where I buy my clothes. Anyway, the Black Vault is a major contribution to the field by a fellow who was only in his teens. God knows what he's going to do by the time he's 35. So thanks, John. Appreciate it. Have a great birthday. And, well... This is, well, I'm not to be confused with, hold on, my mind just blanked out on him. Tony Robbins. I'm not to be confused with Tony Robbins on so many levels. One of the things that Paradigm Research Group has been trying to do for many, many years is to show respect, acknowledgement, and raise the level of self-image in this field. It is long overdue, long overdue. And so we're going to do a little something now which is going in that vein. We're going to do a lot of things tonight in that vein. In fact, you're going to see some pretty unusual things, and there's some things I wanted to do which were incredible I couldn't do because, as all of you know, I had a nervous breakdown on Friday night. How did you know that? Well, I was downstairs tying deck furniture to myself and trying to jump into the pool. Which, I mean, the problem there is not what happens to you, it's the ridiculous crime scene photo afterwards. You got your floating face down in the pool with deck chair furniture tied to you. You're never going to live that one down. So in order to do this next little thing, I now want to invite up to the stage our co-moderator for this conference, who's done a fantastic job. Give her a great hand of applause. Former CNN anchor Cheryl Jones.
Thank you so much. And hasn't Stephen done a wonderful job with this conference? I think we should give him a hand. There's a lot about Stephen that you may not know, and one thing, I know that you know how politically active he has been, and he has quite a few accomplishments. In fact, among them, as a political activist, he's the founder, of course, of the Paradigm Research Group and executive director of the Extraterrestrial Phenomena Political Action Committee, XPAC. And he also maintains, and he is the author of a magnificent site. If you haven't had a chance to visit that, it's the Paradigm Clock. And he's a political columnist, he's a commentator, and former independent candidate for Congress in the 8th District of Maryland. That was in 2002. You almost made it. But we have some good news. While that was a little disappointing because he didn't win, it isn't over. There is a site on the internet called AmericanCandidate.com. Remember that. Go to it and vote. Stephen has been nominated as a candidate for American Candidate for President. You can vote, you can ask your friends all over the world to vote for him. And there are a couple of perks that would be nice should he win, and he has a really good chance because his profile looks so good. He did it himself, you know. But the winner gets $200,000, and that'd be enough to pay for tonight's dinner bill.
Well, it's enough to pay for the cake.
Okay. But he has a lot planned. As a matter of fact, he's going to be our keynote speaker this evening. And I asked him a bit ago what his theme was, so I might give you a clue, but he didn't know at the time. And so I think we're in for a real exciting keynote address here. Stephen doesn't have to worry about pre-planning.
But first we're going to do that acknowledgement. Okay.
But first, we have a little bit of another announcement that we want to squeeze in here, and I'll let Stephen talk about it because it has to do with the women involved in this area of investigation, and we have several here who have some
That's
very
right.
noted accomplishments.
But enough about you. Let's talk about me. No, I am the keynote speaker, and we'll get to that later. It's very ugly. But the point is that if you've read my work going back about to 1996, and you've seen some of my columns, you know that I have some very strong opinions about the role of women in the world and the need for women to become far more involved in primary positions in governance. Because if they don't, I think we're in deep trouble. But the point is that this is also true in this field. All the way through the 80s, it was almost completely male-dominated. It started to change when the phenomena broadened a little bit, and obviously when contactee and abduction phenomena came on board, we had a lot of women join the field. There are not a lot, but they are extremely important. We need more. I think one way you get more is to show appreciation. So what we would like to do is invite some of the important women in this field who happen to be here tonight to come up, take a little bow, maybe say a couple of things about what it's like to be dealing with this subject matter as a woman in the modern world. Now let's see. I think you know the people. Why don't you invite them up?
I think we're going to turn it over now to Paola Harris, and she's going to come up. And we will let her explain from her vantage point a little bit about what she's been through, what she's accomplished, and how she sees the changing paradigm, and how important she thinks this conference is. And
definitely.
you know, the way we-
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You know, about 3 years ago when I did the Art Bell show with Mike Siegel, the first thing he said to me is, "Where did you come from? Where did you come from? Out of the woodwork?" And I said, "No, I've been working for 20 years. I just haven't been in the public eye. This is the first time I've spoken in the United States of America. I thank you so much for this opportunity." And one of the things I was talking about with Stephen and with Cheryl is, you know, it's really, really hard to be a woman in this field. It's a very male-dominated field. And being the way we are, we love to work together. And so I said, maybe what we should do, because I think it's very interesting if we do this, is invite the ladies the women that really work hard. By the way, I can attest to the fact that 20 years in the field and a lot of research is working hard. And I think we should recognize people like Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, would you come up here? We've had this conversation before. People like Ann Druffel, who's an excellent researcher. Is Ann? Where's Ann? Did she go to bed? Ann Druffel is absolutely incredible. And we have a surprise here too, because there's Esen from Turkey. I can't pronounce her last name. She's a MUFON representative, and she is from Turkey, the Sirius Center. Oh, Ann, she's here. And I know maybe each one of these women would like to say something, but I know that we're doing it from the heart, and that we have also a very objective way of dealing with the matter. We had a little bit of the heart in our stories, and I thank you so much, and especially for the opportunity. I returned to Rome on Monday, the opportunity to speak in the United States, because I think it's ever so important that we bring, and I speak from also the fact that I'm a European journalist, so we bring this incredible conference. Congratulations, Stephen, for doing this. It's an absolute miracle that we bring it out of Washington into the world, so I'm so happy there's also an international group of people here.
Thank you.
Oh my God, they picked me the first. Well, men and women, this is the issue that we have tried to be dealing with for a very long time, but and add ufology to that is pretty difficult to explain. Well, let me say that what I feel in the bottom of my heart is that no matter if you are man or woman, I feel ufology and the fact that there are extraterrestrials, other life somewhere there in the universe, is the only thing that will change the world forever. Because I believe this is the only thing that really shakes you from your fundamentals and gives you a new paradigm to live and to identify yourself your place in the universe. And I think women have a very important role here as we give birth to both men and women. I think we need more women to go up there and speak about this. So we just need to have our choice, make our choice. Thank you very much.
And before Anne speaks, Anne has just written, and most of you should know, a very important book called Firestorm about James McDonald.
This is a complete surprise to me. You're honoring women in the field, I understand. Is that what it is? Well, I think that women in the field are encouraged by men in the field. And I had a lovely, lovely husband called Charlie. And at first he didn't know what I was doing, but we had 5 daughters, and I was going crazy taking care of them. And so I got into UFO research. Yes. Well, I had seen something when I was a school kid, you see, that got my interest, and I was a member of NICAP. But Charlie let me go out and investigate cases. He knew that I needed to do something besides raise 5 kids in the house. And so I may be a woman in the field, but I think it's because Charlie encouraged me. So it's both man and woman. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I guess I would just like to see this planet get to a point where it didn't split men and women, and that we were all human beings, and we weren't in boxes, and that would make me very happy. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And as I stand here, there are some other women I think here that could very well have been up here, and I apologize if anyone was left out. Leah Haley certainly comes to mind, and she's also a very important researcher and has done some great work. And there are others, obviously. This is going to improve, I am sure. All right. I think I want to do a little housekeeping, just kind of tidy up some things. Okay. These are important matters. We have some important matters we need to get out of the way first before we get on to the keynote, which Lord knows what will happen there. And there's no turning back at that point. You don't need me here, right? Just stay a little bit. Stay a little bit. By the way, this acknowledgement of women thing, I think you see where I'm going with that. Okay. That's right. We have some great vendors in there. Bob Gerard, of course, is up. He came all the way up from Florida. He's got all the books, the tapes. A lot of them are rare books. And if disclosure comes, folks, they're going to go up about 100,000%. So you want to get those now. And Tom Vallone is there regarding IRI. And Claude Swanson is there with his book. And then there is hovering object. Hovering object is a very growing concern. It's going to make a huge sum of money, and the principal reason for that is it has come out with the X Conference t-shirt. It's really hot, so I would really appreciate it. You gotta have an X Conference t-shirt, folks. Get in, check it out. Great design, looks chic, very nice. Next year we'll probably bring in the collars. So some of the exhibitors came a long, long ways, all right? So check that out. Also, let's see, lost my train of thought. Oop, should head for the pool. All right, now I want to do another acknowledgement here. You're going to find this interesting, Cheryl.
I am.
Okay, because she was a news anchor. She was covering the big stories, big little stories. Oh, by the way, the reason I'm running for American candidate is because apparently Jebediah Bartlett cannot run for a 3rd term. So the spot is open, and I thought I'd take it. Anyway, you're going to love this, folks. We invited every presidential candidate to come tonight, and they had an opportunity to speak to you about issues you care about, and I received some very nice declines from the Bush-Cheney campaign and from John Kerry and from Dennis Kucinich. The others did not respond. But there are other people running for president. Two of these gentlemen are Sterling Allen and Harry DeShock, who are based in Utah. And they are running as writing candidates, which you have every right to do. They are accomplished men. They are developing alternative energy technologies, funding startups involved in their community. And they came to the same conclusion I came to a long time ago, that if you're a politician, the last thing you ever want to do is talk about anything important or controversial. And so they're just making their statement. When they learned about the X conference and the fact that Bush had turned me down, and Kerry had turned me down, and I'm skull and bones, I'm telling you. They're brothers, they should be here. I had the ritual candles all set up in the back here. We're going to go get on our knees and go through what, but no, it's like, even if you're skull and bones, you get in ufology, you're out of here, baby, forget it. All right, the point is, they drove all the way from Utah on their own dime to be here, to be able to come in and say hello and why they're running for president and vice president. And that's the kind of stuff I just love. So I want Sterling Allen and Harry DeShock to come up here and just give you a couple of minutes. They are presidential candidates, not this American candidate nonsense. They're the real deal.
Do we look like presidential material or what? I'll go ahead and hold it for a second, yeah. You can call us the Sterling and Harry Show. I had the privilege of traveling with this guy in the car for days. And you go to these speaker outfits and they like go on and on and on, and you just like, it's so funny, you're busting the gut the whole way. That's this guy right here.
When he was awake.
When I was awake. Anyway, in the one of the Hubble telescope pictures that came in recently, you have two galaxies going like this. You think we have problems? No, we don't. We haven't seen nothing yet, okay? We're talking about 2012, the planet's going to go, Well, I see this as an opportunity. It's like East meets West, old world, new world. You have the old culture colliding with the new culture, and this is a great opportunity. Now, as a presidential candidate, you know that I have no chance of winning the American nomination or the election of President of the United States. We have no chance. I forgot to tell him. Anyway, my task here is to kind of push the envelope with you guys, okay? Say something that kind of puts you on like, okay, I can just barely handle that. Something that, every X conference or every conference like this, there's going to be somebody that says something so stupid. That's what's quoted in the newspaper, right? all the really good stuff, all the great documentation, they don't say anything about that, but the guy who says the stupidest thing, that's what's in the newspaper. And that's my goal. I tried to get up in LDS General Conference one time to give a talk, and they wouldn't let me. Okay, pushing the envelope. I mean, you didn't even laugh at that one. That was so weird. Anyway, really quick, I was supposed to only take 3 minutes. I'm going to turn it over to this guy. Here we have 2012's coming down. We all believe something might happen. What if, we have these elitists who are holding on to all the information. They don't want the lay people that can't handle this stuff, can't understand this stuff. We elitists will get, with all of our billions of dollars, we'll make this craft, we'll get off the planet, you guys can be toast, and we'll go off to some other star system and we'll survive. And apparently, some people believe that some of these returns, such as the J-rods, actually descended from this planet, and that they have come back to try and fix something that they did wrong. And these elitists are controlling things. Now, see, that's what's going to get in the paper, okay? Anyway, here's the idea, and this is a new idea for me. This is a brainstorming, just throwing this out, something to think about. What if we, as a human race, pulled together, said, let's look at this 2012 thing. Is the planet really going to, what's going to happen? NASA work on it, and these other people work on it, that we can really get some information. They're not going to sequester it. We're going to have open forum. We're going to pull this information together. Let's build an ark. Not just 8 people, but 8 billion. And let's hightail it to Mars. Let's camp out there for a little while. The Earth does this thing, and we come back, we repopulate it, and hey, we have a great society. Can you imagine something like that? Pulling the race together? I know it's a pipe dream, it'll never happen, but maybe something close to that. That's the vision statement, and that's my platform. Vote for Sterling Allen. Woo!
It's been a long trip. I'd like you to know that when we got into Washington, D.C. last night about 3 o'clock in the morning, there were so many people happy to see us, people waving and honking. And this one cop even stopped to say, hey, you got to learn how to not take left-hand turns here. And I went, was that left? It's kind of amazing that we're here. This is a sudden thing for me. I'm a dairy farmer, you know. I have pigs, I have 6 children, I have a lot of moving parts where I'm at, and I'm seeing that things are really hard. Things that seem like they should be simple just aren't anymore. I see bad plans being voted in, I see good plans being left by the wayside. I have concerns. I learned how to run a computer this year. I finally got out of the tractor long enough in a long winter, and I've been learning, and I did not realize how much is going on that no one knows about. I started following a story. One thing led to another. I found a way to introduce myself to Sterling, who was just a scientist, had some scientific questions to run past him, and next thing I know, we're both on a project. Next thing I know, he tells me he's running for president, and I go, president of what? He said, the United States, and I go, okay. Good luck out there. I voted before. And one time I was in California and the vote wasn't even closed and they told us who won. And I said, how does that work? Our votes really count. So he told me he didn't have a chance to win. And he told me also that he'd have to be a write-in candidate. And I thought, well, hey, no, that's a good idea. Because that way we don't have to depend on the Chad thing, you know. If you can spell Bush, then your vote counts. I think they ought to just get rid of the touchstone computer screen thing, and somebody's hand's shaking. It must be low on food. And I think that I would like to send a message to Bush. I'll say, you know, if you can't do it, you know, if you can't get free energy systems, the funding they need, we're completely held up for funding. If you can't keep your microbiologists alive and your scientists and your most qualified people, then you don't deserve to be the boss. I said, I can keep them alive. I can crack the code. I can disclose a few things. I'll be happy to do it. And if you want to know what kind of a presidential anything, I'll be a politician. I think that Stephen Greer, just saw him today for the first time, and Jim Mars would probably be on my team. I saw myself thinking like they do, going, yeah, there's the guy. My hand in the back going, oh, vote for me. I'll put you right up there. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Go ahead and do it. Thank you. There's too much fun going on here. Keep it down. I think the hotel charges more if you have too much fun. Right? You're 20% fun charge, so keep it down. You got this? No, there you go. There's that too. You gotta tighten it up so it doesn't come over. Drag it over. Tight. All right. Okay. Sterling and Harry are pretty great guys. I just think they're very cool. But make no mistake about it, if they're still in the race, when I get on the American Candidate Show, I'm going to crush them. Okay. All right, what's going to happen now is that I'm going to give a keynote, and then we're going to give out the Paradigm Research Group Awards, and then we're going to have some entertainment, again from Victoria Pratt-Keating, who has another very traditional standard song. And then Bruce Maccabee is going to play, I think, the Bach Concerto No. 3 or something, complete with drums, which I think is going to be very exciting. And you are allowed to dance during that period, but only on the tables. You can't dance on the rug. This has just been put down. This is like only 2 months old, so you must dance on the tables. All right. Keynote time. Keynote, where's the camera? Keynote. No, what does Rush Limbaugh say? Tape, mark that tape. I stand before you this evening a somewhat embittered man. Because, as it happens, I am the 6th choice to be the keynote speaker at this conference. My discomfort is somewhat exacerbated by the fact that I chose the keynote speaker. Now I'm a California boy, and this is going to set the California self-esteem movement back decades. Now, how did this come to be? Well, I'll tell you. And I'm going to drop some names here because I like to, but it's not to embarrass anybody. All right? By the way, he talked about seeing Stephen Greer and so forth, and he was talking about George Bush. I had not seen Stephen Greer in a while. It had been almost a year. And when he walked by in the hall, I said, between him and George Bush in a steel cage match, it is no contest. He is unbelievable. All right, enough of that. Back to the keynote. Look. Let me give you an idea of where we went with this. Okay. Self-esteem. I tell you, it's hard to come by. Just when you think you've got it, it's gone. The intent, by the way, the keynote hasn't started yet. This is the ramp up to the keynote. I'll let you know when the keynote starts. The purpose of this conference was not to just entertain you, though God knows you need it. The point is, the purpose of this conference was to make a statement to Washington, D.C. We couldn't actually hold it downtown in Washington, D.C., because no one can afford to make a statement down there. But in Gaithersburg, you can make one. It's not bad. It comes in at, I think, $19 a statement or something. It's very reasonable. But we're making a statement. So this was about reaching out. It was about a little bridging. It was about a little, how you doing? How's it going? When did you come down and say hello? So we sent an invitation to every member of the House and Senate to come, or send a staffer. We actually had a couple show up. We sent an invitation to every member of the presidential candidacy to come, and 3 declined. But we also, and this is where you can really reach out, we also wanted to use the keynote for that purpose. I'll give you an idea of the people that were approached. An invitation, well, I went through several people. I attempted to get John Podesta to be the keynote speaker. It would have been very, very interesting, but it was not possible. Roger Lear, Dr. Roger Lear, personally, as it turned out, because he was going to France, delivered an invitation to General Dennis Letty, the chairman of the Cometa port, which was a major event of about 3 or 4 years ago, to come over, first time, and talk about the Cometa report. I really wanted Dennis Kucinich to do the keynote, because I like Dennis, and he's doing his thing, and he's still in the race. The point is, if he had come here and stood before you and said what he believes about this issue, what he knows about this issue, he would have made political history. And he would have gotten millions and millions of emails and faxes from all over the world, and his candidate would be remembered for a long time. He didn't do it. You have to ask these people that. It's not easy to cross the curtain, easy to cross that ridicule curtain that's been created by our government. But I got more, well, being rejected by 3 men of power, 3 alpha males like that, which I think you understand the effect that could have had on me. The point is I tried to change course here. And we came very close to having Shirley MacLaine give the keynote at this conference. She would, I think, have done it if she had not been filming this week. She was doing a movie. Had the chance to meet her a while back, went out to her ranch, spent a couple of days. I have talked to a lot of people in this town. I've met a lot of people on the Hill. I've known a lot of journalists. And I want to make it very clear that there may be only a handful of people in this town on the Hill who are smarter than Shirley MacLaine or as successful. Right? This is a very sharp woman who has succeeded at everything she has ever done. That would have been kind of interesting. But it wasn't to be. So you get me. All right? Now, having heard this information, you're probably thinking right now, okay, but in a somewhat Seinfeldian fashion, is he keynote worthy? Well, there's only one way to find out. And by the way, one of the benefits of not actually getting any sleep for 4 days is that when you do something like this, I'm going to find out what I'm going to say at the same time you're going to find out, because I have no idea. Okay, that's it. Now, the real keynote, key the thing. The keynote starts now, all right? Okay. This is the keynote, a true one, the real deal. And here's why I'm going to do it. I'm not just going to speak to you, but I need to talk over your head a little bit here, not in the condescending way, but in the geographical way. These words need to go out over there into the foyer and make an immediate non-inertial right turn, okay, and go straight down to Washington, D.C. I'm speaking to these people down here, all right? And I want to start by basically making an open statement to the two men who are going to vie to rule the United States, not rule, lead the United States in 2005, all right? I'm trying to be serious here, folks. You're laughing. Let me get serious. First and foremost, I'm a little troubled by the fact that given the $400 or $500 million that's going to be spent on this campaign, and all of the process you go through, and all the selection, and all of the money raising, and all of the networking, and the campaigning, it's all said and done. In November of this year, we are going to choose, if we so choose to go to vote, and 75% of American citizens don't, other than the fringe, did I say fringe? So Sterling, I'm sorry, please, fringe, wrong word. Other than the other candidates who are in the race, we're going to choose between the two-party candidates. We will be choosing between two men who thought it was appropriate when they were in college to join a Kabbalistic secret society that operates out of a tomb on an Ivy League university and holds rituals in which young men in underwear sit around and share their deepest sexual secrets. I'm not making this up. There are 3 books out right now, including Alexandra Stevenson, for which she has been threatened, that has exposed Skull and Bones for what it is. Both of these men should repudiate this and repudiate the membership, which has no other purpose than for people of power to network each other up through almost adolescent treehouse type relationships in which those that are in get to stay in. Most certainly John Kerry should repudiate this. But when both of them were asked about this in the previous question and answer sessions during the campaign, they didn't simply respond, not respond. They made it clear that they weren't going to respond. You see where I'm going here? The UFO issue is about a managed issue. It's not even about a secret. Believe me, the UFO issue is not a secret. The government's got some real secrets. You have no idea. You can't even begin to understand what they have. If you go watch a movie like Enemy of the State with Will Smith, you get a glimpse. If you go watch Kubrick's last movie, Eyes Wide Shut, you get a glimpse. When you read the exposés of Bohemian Grove, you get a glimpse. Right? The problem in America today is not what we're doing in the open, which can be difficult, but what we do in complete and total secrecy. We don't have that luxury anymore. It might have been something we could get away in the frontier when the population was a couple of million in the colonies, and there was no cable television, and you had to sort of get together and make up your own fun, and that's fine. And organizations, even secret ones, do have their benefits. But in the 21st century, with 6 billion people, where 20 to 25,000 children die every day because they don't have enough food, or they got a disease that could be cured. That's 7 World Trade Centers collapsing, filled with children today. And you have the political upheaval that comes from that. Can you be building a national security state that is going to be run by individuals who engage in adolescent, Kabbalistic secrecy rituals? It's absolutely absurd. And so the point here is that while we're not going to get to join Skull and Bones, and we're not going to get to go to the Bohemian Grove, we're not going to be able to look inside that thing, we do get a glimpse because we got involved in this issue, and this issue is the crown jewel of the secret empire. And the secret empire is the intelligence wing of the military-industrial complex, which Eisenhower warned us about, and just about every other reasonably sane person has warned us about, including Patrick Moynihan, who chose to make it his issue, his important issue, the last thing he did before he died. Of all the things he might have done, the last thing he did when he knew he was going to die, before he retired, was to write a book about American secrecy, the American experience, do a tour with Bob Kerrey, raise the issue, and then retire. He wasn't going to do much, and he knew that. But the point is, he was saying, look, I could walk out of here and I could say a lot of interesting last words and parting words, but these are the words I'm telling you. Secrecy is going to destroy your nation. It's going to destroy your republic. It's going to take away your rights. Because secrecy is like a tumor in the middle of your body that you don't know about. By the time you find out just how bad it is, you're finished. America has a lot of blemishes, and it has a lot of things wrong with it. But when they're out in the open, we get at it. We deal with it. And we make mistakes, and we apologize. Well, citizens apologize. Officials don't apologize. But once you create a secret world filled with underground bases capable of handling hundreds of thousands of people, and research projects about who knows what, funded by $30 billion of black money, you don't know what's going on there. The members of the Select Intelligence Committee don't know what's going on there. By the way, one of those members was Gary Condit, who was unable to really keep track of things because he was sort of distracted. That's the level of the Select Intelligence Committee. These are the only people that deal with that budget, folks. The rest of the Congress can't touch it because that would expose it to too many elected officials, and by God, the next thing you know, we're talking about it around the tables here. So they have a select committee on intelligence, and they select the stuff they're going to keep track of. And if you think they know what's going on in the underground bases in Arizona, you're living in a parallel universe. They don't even know what's going on in their own bank account. And yet, that's the only thing between us and the secret empire. A few members of Congress given the oversight of a $30 billion black budget. So when I got into the UFO thing, which I don't like to call the UFO thing, I prefer to call it the extraterrestrial-related phenomena thing. I don't like acronyms. It's a slave term. It needs to be put to bed. Get rid of it. You know, unidentified, we know exactly what they are. Alien craft. I didn't really get into like, gee, I'm gonna have fun looking at all those neat photographs, right? Disc, small disc, big disc, little disc, blurry disc. That one's moving, that's not. Video, whatever, and I'm gonna enjoy that. No, that gets boring after about 5 minutes. What I found out about is that when you look at what's been done to this issue, you get a complete picture of the course of events in American society since 1947. And I think every one of you knows that something is drastically wrong. Doesn't mean that you're, gonna be sent out to a gulag tomorrow. Doesn't mean something awful is going to happen. You may live a very comfortable life. Donald Trump, I'm sure, is going to live a comfortable life. The point is that doesn't mean that your republic is sliding out from underneath of you. Now, for me, the issue of containing the information wasn't that hard. If I'm John Foster Dulles, or if I'm Van Ivor Bush, or any of the alpha males of the time, And I discovered that the Russians got as many good German scientists as we did, and they're building ballistic missiles, and that they stole our nuclear secrets, and they're building nuclear weapons to put on the ballistic missiles. And Winston Churchill has already defined the Cold War by describing the separation of Europe as the Iron Curtain, all right? And if you had a little imagination, you're able to look forward and see those submarines just off the coast. The good thing about the submarines is you don't have any anxiety. Right, there's none of this, oh my God, they're coming in, how long? 18 minutes over the poles. No, no, no. With the submarines, it's like, what? Bong, you're over. Right? You get about 6 seconds. Right? That's not enough time to eat a burrito. You're over. You're out of here. So it's kind of nice. We almost had nuclear war 7, 8, 9 times. You know about some. You don't know about all of them. Every once in a while, somebody will do a little report on something. There was one that was stayed off by an obstinate missile silo guy south of Moscow that refused to back down from Moscow, that was saying, put those missiles in the launch mode. It turned out it was, what was it? I think it was a meteorite or something. We're lucky to be here. We should have been blown up. We dodged that bullet. And then the Cold War was over, right? So it's time to party. Right, we're going to have a peace dividend, and there's no need to have all those proxy wars. And we were going to be friends with the Russians, and we were. I mean, we went into business immediately. It was great. It was like old times week. There's probably skull and bones guys in the Kremlin right now. They're all partying. Of course, the Kremlin basically is pretty much a tomb. It looks like it. It'd be perfect. But the thing is, what happened? We didn't have a peace dividend. If anything, things got weirder and stranger very fast. Why? Because we won the Cold War, but we lost the battle with ourselves over the tools that we used to win it. We emulated them, not just defeated them. This is what you learn when you get into the extraterrestrial issue. Right? I've never seen a UFO. I've never been contacted. I've never been abducted. Though I begged, they won't do it. I'm in it because of a phrase I love to use, primarily because I came up with it, namely that intellectual passion occurs at the intersection of fact and implication. And when you've put fact and implication together in the right way, and you get that intellectual passion, that lasts a lifetime, all right? That's a passion that just doesn't go away. We've got it. Everybody in this room has got it. Because we know the facts, and we understand the implication, and we have an intellectual passion. And the only reason that there aren't 500 camera guys and women from the news media here is that the government said, starting in 1947, we can only contain this if we can contain the people. And since we can't shoot them, we're going to create a ghetto surrounded by an intellectual, a wall of ridicule, and we're tossing everybody into it that touches the issue. And that means if you're a captain or a general or an astronaut or a Pulitzer Prize winner, if you got PhDs from MIT, it doesn't matter. You touch this issue and you're in there. And once you get in there, we got you, you know, you're all together. And then every once in a while, we'll send a debunker up to the wall and they'll throw something over to taunt you. It's incredibly powerful. It works. Some of you have been in this field for 30 years. You've been in an intellectual ghetto for 30 years, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, all I can say is, if you like it, you can stay there. But if you don't, you get out. You don't wait for them to come and lift you out. You get out, right? And so when somebody in Congress, or well, actually not in Congress, or anybody in the media gets into my face about this issue, I eat them alive. I don't back off and say, oh, please, don't ridicule me. My Lord, you know, what's going to happen? I'm so upset. I don't have the evidence. I meant to bring it. I left it home, and you're wanting it now, and I don't have it, right? It's in a steamer trunk, you know, back in my car. Please don't ask me another question. Just get me on Nightline, folks, and let them bring on some stupid debunker and push that no evidence stuff in my face. We got to get tough, but we don't want to be what I would call fundamentally controversial. I'm not an enemy of the government. The government is not my enemy. We're not going to replace it. If disclosure happens tomorrow, it's still going to be here. It's not going to go away. And let me tell you something, folks. When you take it on, it's formidable. The United States government is the most powerful organization the world has ever seen. Be thankful that it is not fundamentally venal. Be thankful that it has some interesting structure and a pretty good social contract, because if it didn't, brother, we would be in trouble. So you reform it, you change it, you engage it, but you can't engage it if 75% of the American people don't even vote. We are overseas right now killing people because we think in their best interest to emulate our democratic values. That's a fairly stringent approach, but one can justify it. But how can you justify it when 75% of the citizens of the nation that is using that approach do not even vote? How do we look? All right? In the last election, 25% of the American citizens voted. That's half of the registered voters, which means that the president, or the almost president of that election, was elected by essentially 12.5% of the American people, meaning 88% didn't vote for him. Now there's a mandate, right? When was the last time we had a mandate? Possibly with Reagan, because he was a visionary and he captured people's imagination in some ways. You almost got a mandate there. But those are the good old days, folks. So people are turning off. And why? What's the principal reason that they're not voting? I know why they're not voting. It's not that hard. It's the same reason that if you have somebody that every time you encounter them, they lie to you, you start walking across the street. You don't want to talk to them anymore. You don't want to engage them. You can't deal with somebody that lies to you. And in this city, lying has become epidemic. It is practically institutionalized. No one can tell the truth. Even when it doesn't cost a thing, the deferred default position is lie about it, right? Because if you can demonstrate you can lie about the inconsequential, there are people in this town who are going to consider you a player. This person can lie about nothing. Let's get him up here and start doing some serious lying. All right? So, what I'm saying is that I don't want you to be too narrow in your approach and thinking about what is going on with this. Right? Don't be too narrow. Try to look into it as broad as possible terms. You are part of a citizen science movement that's been going on since the late 40s. It's now essentially it's approaching its 60th year. Citizen scientists who said, you won't touch it, we'll look at it, you don't believe it, we'll check it out, you won't write about it, we will, we'll form our own organizations, you'll undermine them, we'll form another one, we'll form our own magazines, we'll form our own groups, we'll have our own conferences, we'll do everything we can because you won't. That's incredible. 60 years. Citizen science movement, that's what you're part of. But it's no longer just citizen science. Because when the Cold War ended, and a lot of retired military with great, fine careers felt ethically that they could talk about this issue when they started to talk. And once that happened, it changed everything. You can go knock off a crazy researcher out there in Arizona once in a while. You can make a statement. You can't start pounding on colonels and captains and pilots. You got to sort of dance around that. And they started talking, and as Greer has obviously talked about in this conference, it just continues and continues and continues. It's fascinating to watch. So in 1991, when the Soviet Union dismantled into its representative republics, detargeted its missiles, right? Basically, they switched them from Chicago to Chechnya, right? And since Chechnya is not Chicago, we immediately brought him in and made him a board member of the American Stock Exchange. Since that moment, we have been in what I call the disclosure process. Right? It's not a movement yet. Right? The civil rights activism was a movement because it involved millions of people who actually spoke with their feet. They marched, they walked, they did a lot. It was large, and they could put 500,000 people in the mall. We can't do that. There's reasons for that. They're fairly subtle and complex. So it's not a movement, but it's right on the cusp of being a movement, so it's still a disclosure process. It doesn't matter, it's still very large. Thanks to the internet and radio and everything else, what passes for a process today would be a massive movement 50 years ago. Right? So you are involved in the political second stage of a citizen science movement that is a process about to become a movement, political movement, that will be called exopolitics. You are on the threshold of the most profound change that we will ever experience if we live 10,000 years. That's what you're involved in. And of course, great buffets. Let's not forget the buffets. So, we call a conference like this together, everybody comes. What do you do next? What do you do next? Right? After 9/11, and my friend Jim Boca, who, Jim, why don't you stand up just for a second? This gentleman has been absolutely critical to my success. Without him, I would not have done anything in the last 6 years. All right? Thank you. He took somebody who was only moderately computer literate, and he made it possible for me now to run and manage my own websites. And a website is a window to the world. It is virtually free, and you can go after anybody, and he made it possible. And also, the other night, remember when I was down at the pool strapping those deck chairs to me? Eventually, he and I worked all through the night to get the registration ready for Saturday morning, right? And he left about 6 in the morning. He knows what he wants to do. He's committed to this, right? And others are committed to this, but we need more, right? We need to resolve and close this issue, all right? In some ways, it's worse than a war. War is so traditional. We've had thousands of them. So it's like, we need to end the war. Fine, you end the war, another one's going to start. Right, it just keeps going on and on. This is different. This is 56 years in which the government has told you that something that is absolutely proven beyond a reasonable doubt is in fact nonsense. And you are supposed to then embrace the government that tells you that, rush out, donate money to their causes, get on board, sign up, put a gun on your shoulder, whatever else. And yet the government is denying to you the most profound reality that you could possibly have lived through, and there was a lot of lives you could have had. You got this one. And you're going to be comfortable with this? I don't think so. So, what I'm hoping will happen is that this conference will be part of this process, and that next year it will be bigger, right? And maybe this disclosure process will become a disclosure movement. I don't care who's president with respect to this issue. I can assure you that it is not a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. It's not a Green Party issue, right? There is no party that can claim this thing, meaning, okay, here's the deal, all right? Basically, the left is decayed. It's no longer viable. We need reform, we need change, we need whatever, okay? And that's why the extraterrestrials are here, in order to effectuate this transition to a more right-wing approach, or reverse all of that, all right? We need to get the left back in business. We need Al Franken on his own radio show. We need liberals here. And the extraterrestrials have come to help us do this. They'll be appearing regularly on the O. Franken Factor, right? Where Al will grill them religiously about, it isn't that way. They are engaging the planet. The American people represent 5% of the planet's population. They are not here for us. But because we live in the most powerful nation in the world, which when it makes a bad policy decision, 400,000 people die over here, it makes a bad environmental decision, 57 species fly off into space. It's not that we're not venal, it's just we're so big. America's huge. It decides that, that the low fat is good, tells you that. You rush out, you buy every low-fat food you can find, you put on 600 pounds. This is serious cause and effect here, folks. When the government makes mistakes, people pay. And when a government functions in secrecy with Kabbalistic people running it, it makes lots of mistakes, and most of them you don't even know about. And so I'm saying that the people in this field need to become part of a movement, because you have evidence, you have information, you have coalesced, you've done all the things that you're supposed to do, and if you refuse to accept this curtain of ridicule and start exercising your political power, you will change this government, you will bring about disclosure, which you may get anyway, but let me tell you, there's a big difference between the government finally coming to you and saying, children, right? We're so distressed. You're acting so poorly. Right? So we're going to give you this truth, right, about the ETs so that you feel better and leave us alone. Right? There's a big difference between that and a government surrounded by an engaged populace that will not stand down from the issue to the point where those that oppose this process inside government do not have anywhere to go. That is empowerment. That is exercising the social contract, and it feels a whole lot better. It sends the right message, and you'll get a lot more change. You live in a society where policy is based on don't ask, don't tell. You are told that you are on a need-to-know basis, right? And we're accepting it, okay? And because the people in this genre are getting more sensitive to that, we're starting to speak up. And so 10 years ago, and Dan Pinchas is here tonight, I think, Dan Pinchas, who was part of the original Operation Right to Know, they went downtown and they marched in front of the White House and they marched in front of the Washington Post. And for the next 12 years, we had to listen to a bunch of pompous people talk about how stupid that was. They've ruined ufology. They've marched in front of the Washington Post. My God, the Washington Post will never cover this issue. Well, folks, I have been beating on the Washington Post for 10 years, all right? I never marched in front of it. I've never chained myself to a gate. And you can't get these people to cover this issue with dynamite because they're in the back pocket of the CIA. George Bush, the 41st, had the great distinction of having the Central Intelligence Agency named after him, and that agency held the very important 75th birthday of Katharine Graham, the publisher of the Washington Post, and nobody thought the publisher of the #1 paper in the most powerful capital of the most powerful nation having their birthday party, the CIA, was worthy of so much as a lifted eyebrow. All right? And by the way, I've got it in for the Washington. I love the paper. I mean, I love the comics. I love everything about it. It's just that it's completely compromised on this issue, and it drives me crazy. It's like having a great relationship with somebody who you really like, but there's this one issue where they're insane, and you don't know what to do about it. You give them Prozac, you give them, you give them, a Rush Limbaugh dose of Oxycontin, whatever. It just doesn't work, and you get frustrated. And so you got this paper, right? It's got all the good comics. I mean, the Times have got rotten comics. I'm sorry. The Post has got the good. And let me give you an example. Okay, I once said this is back in '97. I sent in a piece to David Von Driel, who at the time was the editor of the style section. And I didn't want to start strong, and go in through the news door. I thought I'll slip in under the wire in the style section. And I sent this, great letter, And about a couple days later, I get this fax back from David Von Driel. And he says, Mr. Bassett, I'm quoting, there aren't any extraterrestrials. But if you find one, bring him in and we will interview him. I have this fax. It is 8 years old, it's yellow. It's that thermal paper, it's yellow, it's fading. Mark my words, folks, sometime in the not-too-distant future, I'm going to appear on Koppel or one of those shows, and I'm going to haul that fax out, and I'm going to stick it right in front of the camera, all right? Because, you see, by 1997, the Post had changed. You see, I watched All the President's Men. I think it was one of the great movies of all time. I've watched it about 7 times. I read the book. I just thought Woodward and Bernstein were the coolest thing going. I mean, they were so great. Woodward, I didn't realize, was absolutely wrapped up in the intelligence community. He comes from the intelligence community. I mean, he's so wired, and he's even so wired that he actually hangs around and gets last quotes from CIA directors on their deathbed. He writes a book about the last words of William Casey. That's a wired guy. But the point is that they did this cool thing, and I'm thinking, what happened to the Post? Because if the Post of David Von Driel in 1997 was the Post of Ben Bradley in 1972, then here's how that would have gone, okay? okay? Woodward or Bernstein have got this thing going, man. They're sitting there, they're working on it, whatever. They say, I got, you know, this angle, the creep, that, let's go see Ben. So they go in to see Ben, they say, here's what we got. We got the break-in, we got this, we got the that. And so Ben hitches up his pants and he looks at me, you know, big, this guy very powerful. He says, well, Woodward Bernstein, here's the deal. There's not a chance in hell that a president of the United States is actually going to get involved in a break-in of the DNC and pay a bunch of wackos a bunch of money to go over there and do a stupid burglary, and the money is going to go right up to the president, and so it's absolutely ridiculous. But if you can get Richard Nixon to come into my office and sit down and confess, I'll write a story about it. And that would have been All the President's Men. So, but I got to tell you this story. Forgive me. These things just keep popping into my head. Have I gone too long? Are we okay still? Are we okay? We're all right? Okay. Richard says he's going to stay here because he's they're going to bring another cake out in about another 20 minutes, and I'll hang here. You know, this will be the shard on the moon built up there at ice. I'm just kidding. I was going down to this event. It was a book signing party at the Cafe Milano down in Georgetown. It's a very, very posh place. For those of you who don't come from posh surroundings, it's a very posh place down in Georgetown, the Cafe Milano. This is where all the cool people go. And so they had this book signing. I'm down there, I'm hanging around. And it's got a private thing, and lo and behold, I look over next to the hors d'oeuvre table, just to the port of the hors d'oeuvre table, and there, leaning against the wall, is Bob Woodward, alone, right? Which is not surprising because this guy is a real pain in the ass. He's not really liked. So he's standing there by himself, and I'm going, well, you know, I've been in this field for a couple of years. I'm a registered lobbyist. I think that's a story. I'm going to go up and say hello to Bob. Plus, I love the guy. I love the president's man. And so I walk. I got to make this. All right, so pretend this is the wall in front of you. So he's standing there next to the hors d'oeuvre table, all right? So I come up from this side. And he sort of looks at me. He didn't put his hand out, you know, he's not sure. And I said, Mr. Woodward, I've been a big admirer of you. I'd like to happen to mention that I'm involved in the UFO issue as a lobbyist. I got half of the word lobbyist. I got lobby. You know. And this is what, you know, in Washington, D.C., this is called a snub with extreme prejudice, all right? And this is how it works. It's mostly, well, to do it well, you've got to be quick, fast, agile, and you've got to know where to go. Otherwise, you look like an idiot. And this is what he did. First, I'll show you what he did, and I'll tell you. In a town where there's about 46 lawyers every square foot, you don't touch anybody, but very carefully. So the touch, if it's too much of a touch, is a lawsuit. You start to sue. The person's in Cafe Milano. Hell, just in the nuisance alone, you're going to pick up 20 grand. So his touch was just so light on my shoulder. But by moving his arm across his body and touching my left shoulder, I was now blocked off completely so he could slip by without saying anything. And that's exactly what he did. And I just sort of looked at that and I said, oh, this is not good. You know, I felt betrayed. You know, I felt betrayed. So I basically went over to the hors d'oeuvre table and rototilled my way through enough canapes to kill a horse, and went home in a funk. All right. All right. Maybe the canapes is not true, but the snub happened. All right, and it was a message being sent. Okay, is that you are in the intellectual ghetto. I can't be seen talking to you in a Cafe Milano, for crying out loud, at a book signing party. I mean, there could be an undersecretary of an undersecretary over there. There could be, you know, guys in there that are in office, black budget people, whatever, and they're seeing me talking to you. My God, I've got to get out of here. You know? There's a CIA director dying up the street. I got to get up there and get his last words and write a book about it as soon as possible. Right? Right. I'm going to finish up this keynote, right, by making a simple point. If you don't like the way the 21st century is going so far, right, if you think this issue has the ability to change the social contract and the worldview of large numbers of people, then consider politicizing your involvement in any way that you can. And let me tell you how easy it is, right? Last antidote, this is it. When Bush ran for president, you mostly know the story, but I'm getting it on tape because it's going to be shown to dignitaries and other officials. When Bush ran for president in 2000, he was campaigning, and a MUFON official, I think it was Missouri, I'm not sure of the state, named Charles Huffer, who really is a committed guy, maneuvers himself in the campaign shake line, and he gets himself where he's on camera, and when Bush comes by, he says, President Bush, are you going to reveal the UFO information to the American public, or something like that? And Cheney was walking over, and Bush said something, yeah, we ought to do that, and here's a man that knows a lot about that, and Cheney walked up, and so forth, and it was picked up on CNN. This is not a big deal, but it was on CNN. Someone had asked the President of the United States on CNN, to end the UFO cover-up, basically, and that night it was on Koppel. It was mentioned on Koppel and on CNN. It was great. It was pretty cool. What many people don't know, because I corresponded with Huffer, is that he was pretty pumped up by this, and so he sort of hung around, and as Bush was moving to basically leave the area to get back into the campaign car, he caught up with him, but off camera, and he said, Governor Bush, he said, look, you mean that? And he said, yeah, I mean that. Okay. Now, whether he meant it or whether is not the important thing. Just imagine if in the process of campaigning over the next 3 months, both Kerry and Bush were asked 10 times about this issue on camera. All it takes is to simply ask the question. He's standing there. He wants to be the ruler of the free world. You can't ask him that question? Of course you can ask. You ask him anything you want. But if the ridicule curtain is in front of you, you can't get the words out. And so you ask something about Social Security, which they won't answer anyway, but at least it feels like a safer question, you know? 10 questions could change the world, but you gotta ask them. We cannot continue to let people come to us and say, we want to lead you, we want your money to pay our salaries and our pensions, we want the power and the influence, but for God's sakes, don't ask us anything difficult. Just let us get the job, just let us win, right? That's exactly what they do. We just roll over, no problem. Well, this community has got the biggest issue going for them, right? I mean, you out there and you're asking some environmental issue about drainage in the farmlands, I'm telling you, you're not gonna raise a lot of heat. But you start asking about this issue on camera, and you're not gonna lose your job. Well, you might lose your job, but you're probably not gonna lose your job. I mean, but anyway, the point is that, like, it's so much fun. You must confront these people. They cannot asked to run a country that is based on a fundamental lie of this magnitude. You just can't do it, right? So, I'm going to finish now. I was very pleased to be invited for the first time, right? I don't know what I did. It's probably my dress. By the way, if you notice here, I like this outfit. I wear it a lot. This is not the same outfit I had on earlier today. I actually have 7 or 8 of these outfits. The shirt and the ties, they're all different. I mean, really, I'm serious. And the reason for that is that this is kind of my response to this Men in Black thing. You know? No, you're laughing. I'm serious. They got these guys, you know. Now, forget the movie. You know, that wasn't cool enough. You know, the real guys are cool. They don't make those stupid jokes like Will Smith. They're cool. They have narrow, they got the glasses. They're very cool. They wear dress. So my answer to these Men in Black guys, okay, if you're going to dress up in black clothes, okay, then baby, I'm going to dress up in blacker clothes. Right? And you want to get blacker? I'm going to get blacker still until eventually we achieve some sort of sartorial black hole in which any light bouncing off your clothing is unable to return and you just disappear into hyperspace. That joke was so good that I've completely forgotten the last line of what I was going to say. And it ain't going to come back, too, I'll tell you, because But there were times on Friday night, folks, when I was ready to go. I wanted out. It was time. Get me out of here. I've had it. I'm toast. And I'm still going to be recovering. But it has been an absolutely amazing experience. The complexity of this conference was enormous. I way overreached, all right, because I was trying to make a statement. There's so many things that sort of did go wrong, and there was a lot of things that could have gone wrong. But the fact is, you were so psyched up and so positive and so interested that you forgave me all that stuff. And boy, I'll tell you, I feel lucky. I hope we can do this again next year. We're going to have the whole hotel. We had to give up the crystal to a bar mitzvah, no problem. But next year, I want it all, right? 280 rooms, all 15,000 square feet. Richard, of course, will have the entire ballroom for his presentation. Right? And a replica of the cake will be up there by the podium. Right? So, before we go on to the rest of this, I want to thank all the people that helped make this possible. I want to thank the Hilton Hotel, who gave me a sweetheart deal, otherwise it not would have happened. I want to thank Richard Hoagland, who, if he wasn't giving the presentation, we could not have had a conference. You can't hold something like this and have a couple hundred people show up. You got to have 500, 600, 700 people. And Richard Hoagland brings in 500, 600 people. So I thank him, and I thank Cheryl Jones, who is saying something to you folks. She's saying, I was on CNN, I was an anchor, and I'm here today, okay? Because there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay, right? And I want to thank the speakers. And by the way, I had this wonderful idea, and I told them all about it, where I was going to put some signs on each table for each speaker, and then they would sit at those tables so they'd be spread out. This is a great idea, because see my signs? I had signs, real signs. So. But after I sort of finished, before I went up and I took a shower and I got in there and I couldn't find my way out. There was this curtain thing, I knew what was going on there, right? So it took me about 25 minutes. By the time I got out, you all were eating. The MUFON people from Florida had already chowed down, and so I didn't get to do that. But the fact is that a lot of you did spread out. Now, so keep your eyes open. I would like all the speakers that came to this conference, who you'll be seeing in tomorrow, if they would please stand up and take some applause, please. The speakers of the first X conference in Washington, D.C. Here we go. There they are. All right. Okay. Now, we're going to do something I think is very special. It's certainly special to me, and then when that's done, we're going to have entertainment, and I'm out of here, okay? But I'm really happy that we could do this. There was one other thing I wanted to do tonight that was so incredible that it would have been fabulous, but it just got lost. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to come back next year, but next year we're going to do it, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. What is going to happen next is we're going to give out the first Paradigm Research Group Awards. You got to start somewhere. Paradigm Research Group was formed in 1996. To help and assist the UFO research activist community, to help support it, to help build it forward, to help recognize it in small and little ways. It doesn't get the recognition from the mainstream. And so I'm going to give away, bringing about, I think, 5 awards this evening, all right? The first award is going to go for Courage in Journalism, Paradigm Research Group Award for Courage in Journalism. This award goes to a good friend of mine who was the real deal. She was a true journalist. She was fearless. She was not doing it for the money. She was not owned by any corporate contractors. She just wanted to know the truth. And she did it to the day she died. And so she very much deserves this award. And so the first PRG award for Courage in Journalism is going to go to Sarah McClendon. I could say a lot about Sarah, but we don't have the time tonight, but this is the award. We'd hoped that one of Sarah's family members could be here tonight to accept this on her behalf, posthumously, but there's an illness in the family, they couldn't do that. And so a very good friend of Sarah's and the co-chairman of the Sarah McClendon Study Group has come this evening to accept this. And so if you would, John Hurley, would you come forward and accept this for Sarah? I hope he's still here. John? Thank you. John, are you still here? Boy, I may have gone on too long. John is a Southern gentleman. Well, I think my guess is that John's going to turn up. I think he's probably out there waiting this out. So we're going to put this aside for a second. Right. And that brings us to the second award. And this is going to be an annual thing. And each year the trophies are going to get a little bigger, I hope. And by the way, for these awards, deliberately chose this style. Why? Because it's transparent. All right? It's transparent. Okay? This is the Paradigm Research Award for Political Courage. Real courage, folks. Not the courage, right, to go to 6 rubber chicken buffets in a row and raise $20 million and lose some sleep. I'm talking about the real courage, where you take on an issue that the government doesn't want you to touch. You do it because it's right, because your constituents want you to do it, and if you don't like what you find, you tell the public about it. This man did that. He was a vet. He was a family man. He was a conservative, but he was a perfectly fine person. Absolutely unblemished life. And in the prime of his life, he took this issue on as a congressman from New Mexico. And he went to the GAO, and he went to the Army, and he said, I want to have this information on behalf of my constituents. And they basically told him to go pound sand. And then he went on CNN, and not Nightline, but he went on CNN, Larry King, and he said, I don't like what's going on here. Within 12 months, he was dead. Died of a squamous cancer of the ear. You can walk around this town for the next 10 years. You're not going to run into anybody that dies of a squamous cancer of the ear, but he did. I think at the age of 53. And so the first award for political courage goes to Congressman Stephen Schiff. I contacted Marcia Schiff, asked her if she would like to come to accept the award, and she is not really someone who likes to travel. She's a very private person, and all the time that he was in Washington, she only came here twice. She has a job. She doesn't want to ruffle that, and I perfectly understand that, but we will find a way to get this to Marcia in New Mexico. Now, the third Paradigm Research Group Award is the Paradigm Research Group Disclosure Award. And the reason that I chose this, other than it's cool, right, is that it reminded me of the Stargate and Stargate SKG, right? And if you ever read any science fiction as a kid, you definitely read some stories about Stargates, where you just jump through the window and you're in another world. Man, there's nothing better than that. And they really perfected it in this program. The movie was really good, and they perfected the program. And really what it says is, look, you go through this hole, right, into another place. You learn more. You learn about other galaxies. You learn about other planets. You learn about other races. And yeah, they hoke it up because it's a show, but you get the idea. Disclosure is a Stargate. They have craft that can take you to the stars. You can't know about it because their cover-up is too much of a public relations problem for them. And when you confront this issue, when you are a whistleblower or when you are a disclosure advocate, you are trying to break through to the stars. And so it's extremely appropriate and a great pleasure to award the first 2004 PRG Disclosure Award to Colonel Philip J. Corso. John had to leave. I ran too late. He doesn't stay that late, but we'll get something to. I'm sorry. Oh yeah. No, I was going to get to Phil. I'm glad that you're here. This is, I think, a surprise for Phil. I'm glad he's here. I want him to accept it, obviously, on behalf of his father. Come on up, please. Would you like to say something?
I think this helps to offset all the grief that my family went through because my father never intended any of that to happen, and this shows his courage, which was tremendous. We were afraid to even get on an airplane to go up to Simon & Schuster after he wrote the book. So I just want you to know the trials and tribulations that we had to go through, and we appreciate very much. Thank you.
Two more, and then we're going to get Victoria up here, and we're going to sing. She's going to sing a great song for us. In 1997, I founded the Paradigm Research Group website, the Paradigm Clock, which has a clock on it, which Art Bell hates. Well, he hates my clock. I don't know why. I love this clock. And basically, the Paradigm Clock says that when it hits midnight, the government's disclosed to you the truth, the key truth, the essence. They're here. Deal with it. It's coming very soon. And that website is my home base. And one of the things that was put on that website right away, there's a section called the PRG Hall of Fame. And the intention was to put some Hall of Fame people in there. But that was like 7 years ago. And it didn't happen. It wasn't right. And it wasn't time to do it. I mean, it's just a website, simple organization, but you start somewhere, right? Acknowledgement is not about heft. It's about taking the step. It's about making the gesture. Acknowledgement matters. It can be as small as a gesture from somebody on a bus. It really matters. So you got to do it. So I thought this was the best time. I got 300 people. I got cameras everywhere. Let's do it. Let's launch this puppy. So we're going to launch the Paradigm Research Group Hall of Fame. We're going to induct every year one person deceased and one person living, right? Which is perfectly okay. You understand that. That's the way it's done in all the sports. And we'll do that each year until hopefully we catch up with the heroes. There's been a lot of them, right? So I want to start with the Hall of Fame award for a candidate inductee that is deceased. In 1986, when I was still pretty much lost in doing silly business and other stuff that didn't mean much, I was living in Denver. I had always had an interest in the subject, never really followed it, and I'd never been to a meeting, I never joined anything, but for whatever reason, in 1986, I got a flyer, and it was about a presentation that was going to take place there, and someone was going to come in and speak about UFOs. And I said, I'm going to do that. And I said, I got to do something. Well, I was miserable anyway, anything, get me out of the house. So I went down there, and there were about 25 people. It was probably put together by the Denver chapter of MUFON. I know about it. So I sat there, it was about 25 people. This guy, fellow gentleman got up, and he spoke for about an hour on the subject. And it was interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. But it was a little disjointed because his sentences would break off in the middle and he might digress. And so it was a little disjointed. It didn't bother me, but it was clearly not right. But whatever. And I went back to doing my thing. It would be 9 years before I would plunge into this field in January of 1996 when I went to help out with John Mack's operation in Boston, Cambridge. What I didn't know is that the man that I was listening to that night was dying. And the reason his sentences were disjointed is because he was dying. I think it was brain tumor, I'm pretty sure. And so, as a result, he couldn't really think too clearly. Right? But the fact is that because his work was so important, and he knew it, he was going to talk to whoever he could talk to right up until the last day. And that was 1986. It's now 8 years later, and it is astounding to me, I mean, it's just astounding to me, that after this much time, at this opportunity, I would be able to present this Hall of Fame inductee award to this man. And it's just amazing to me. And so the first inductee into the PRG Hall of Fame is Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Transparent. Hey, one more. And abduct somebody here that's living. It's nice to be acknowledged while you're still living. It really is. And we live long. So get that chance. It's great. This person can best be described as a rock. At the center of this issue, this individual has been a rock for 25, 9, 30 years. Consistent, solid, determined, fun, not abrasive, yet stern, scholarly. It goes on and on. Almost no one gets the best of him. No one can really get around his fundamental issue, fundamental logic. And so while people come and go, and we've seen some wild coming and goings in this field, I think you know what I'm talking about, it goes on, and you can depend on it, right? Every field has to have that kind of individual. They are rare. And after a while, they've been around for 20, 30 years, it's like, yeah, okay, fine, give me another 10, no problem. You get used to it, you take it for granted. And since you live in that ghetto with the ridicule curtain around it, people in ghettos don't give awards. I mean, they don't recognize it. It's not right? We're all tainted in there anyway. But no, solid, no problem. I admire that boy. I really admire that. I didn't get into this field until I was like 49, so I won't be able to put in that kind of time. It's not even possible. I can't imagine doing it. 30 years, pounding away on an issue that the government says you will not be resolved in your lifetime. But it will be resolved in your lifetime. So I think it's really cool, so timely, that the first Paradigm Research Hall of Fame inductee to a person living goes to Stanton T. Friedman.
You didn't know?
Oh, I didn't
You
know.
had no idea, guys.
No. Should I say 10 words?
Say as much as you want.
Okay. And he didn't even get baby pictures from my wife. That's an inside joke. When I got a Lifetime Achievement Award in England, I'm sitting at a banquet like this, and the evening was almost over. They'd given out a bunch of awards, and something went up on the screen, and we're talking, and I looked, there was a picture of me when I was 3 years old. And of course, nobody else recognized the picture except me, and I'm wondering what's going on here. And then there was one when I was 6 years old. So then I thought I had the answer. The movie Stanton T. Friedman is real, and it's not my title. Played on Canadian television, and these two pictures were in it. So somebody must have sneaked Graham Birdsall, the late Graham Birdsall, a copy of the movie. But then there was a picture that wasn't in the movie. And so I went up knowing something was going on, no idea what. Graham said, "You take it easy. We've got more to do." And much to my total surprise, and I really was surprised, I am with this, I'm bowled over. He had talked to people all over the world at conferences and got them to say nice things about me. I don't know how much he bribed them to do that, but, and then he had it on video. And it turns out my wife had provided to somebody who's here, as a matter of fact, Dr. Cormier from Moncton, New Brunswick, had called her and got all kinds of pictures from me and from her, sent them to Graham in England. I didn't know a darn thing about it. I flew all the way from Chicago to England with Dr. Roger Lear. He knew all about it, didn't say a word. That proves that secrets can be kept, you see. So I am delighted to receive the reward. I am surprised, but at least he didn't get secret pictures from my wife. And I am pleased indeed. You know, I wondered how this conference was going to go. And I felt much better when about a week or two ago I asked him, how many people are you expecting at this event? You know, how many books should I send along and stuff? When he said 600, I figured, yeah, the conference is going to be a success. And I'm carrying home, I'm sure, a lot fewer than I brought here, thank goodness. So this is a challenge from the PRG group. For all of us to get our courage in hand and confront the world as it is. It is not true that most people think UFOs are nonsense. It may well be true that most people think other people think they're nonsense. Most people don't act on the courage of their convictions. They act on their perception of what other people, what they think other people think is reality. We have to interfere in that process. We have to deal with facts and data and solid information and recognize that there's a lot at stake here. I keep getting asked at interviews, you know, what difference does it make? The most important difference it makes when we recognize that we're not alone is that it gives us a new way of looking at ourselves. It's not them that matters, it's us that matters. And I've been saying for a long time, and I hope it changes soon, that from an alien viewpoint, we're a primitive society whose major activity is tribal warfare. I hope that changes so that our children and grandchildren, and I do have one, will grow up in a different world than exists at present, because we know how to look at ourselves as somebody else does. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, folks. Victoria Pratt-Keating is going to come up here and sing the only song you're ever going to hear about black helicopters. And then the always talented Bruce Maccabee is going to take us on out with a medley of golden oldies on the piano. And I hope you had a great time, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'm actually going to bed tonight. Don't call my room.
Well, I'd like to say that by default, my little PA system here has been used for many workshops and for this conference without that really being planned. And every time there's a great speaker on my microphone, I think, you know, I'm just going to have to take this microphone home and bronze it and save it and everything. The stories it will tell. Let's see. I seem to have lost all of my guitar picks. Hang on just a moment. Here's one. I wrote this song a while back, and it's on my CD, and it's called Black Helicopters, and basically I like seeking out unusual places to play. So I used to tour around the country quite a bit, and I used to live in Sedona, Arizona, which is right next to Nevada, so I went out to Rachel, Nevada, and played at the Little Alien in the little trailer on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Diner, you know. And then the next day I got my little secret map and I drove down to the base boundary of Area 51, which was quite an adventure down there. I did that twice. And so I saw the Jeep up on the hill, I saw the surveillance cameras, and I just kind of went down and checked it out. Actually, I did step my toe over the line. They said, if you step your toe over the line, you'll be shot and killed, and they didn't. They beeped the horn. But I lived to tell. And the black helicopters have been following me ever since. Ooh. the hubbub, my guitar's gotten a little bit out of tune. Okay, here we go. Like giant flying insects, I see them heading my way. In my binoculars, black helicopters, far in the sky, hovering on their way to who knows where. Menacing propellers thunder, black helicopters. It's a UFO